Hi everyone, it's John the Dyslexic Geek here. In today's video I'd like to talk about where my Lego collecting journey began, where it stopped, and then where I discovered Lego as an adult, once again as an adult. I'd also like to spend a little bit of time in this video talking about my dyslexia and how it actually relates to my Lego collecting hobby. In front of me I have 3 Lego sets. Each of these Lego sets represents a rather significant part of my Lego journey. So I'll get onto more of these in a moment. I began collecting Lego sets as a child in the 80s, where my sets were brought for me at Christmas times and birthdays. So I didn't get Lego that often, but when I did, it was very much appreciated. More often than not, it was brought for me by my parents, grandparents, or aunties and uncles. One particular set that does mean quite a significant amount to me is this rather small, unassuming F1 car. This set was one of my earliest Lego sets that I received. It's not the very first one, but it's one that does hold a lot of sentimental value to me. I can't remember precisely where and when this set was brought for me, but I have a good idea of when I did get this F1 car. You see, as a child, I used to hate going to the dentist. I still do even now as an adult. But especially as a child, it was particularly difficult for my mum to get me to go to the dentist. And especially whenever I needed to have treatment, like a filling or something along those lines. So more often than not, in order to convince me to go and have said treatment, my mum would always say, "Look, okay, we'll take you to the dentist. Afterwards, you'll be able to go into town and pick up a small toy." More often than not, it would have been Lego, and I'm pretty sure this F1 car would have been one of these sets. It's not. Most of it's now pretty complete. There's a few bits and pieces missing. The racing driver isn't the same one that came with it. I think it's in my Lego box somewhere. But for the most part, it's pretty accurate. It means a lot to me. I don't remember exactly where, but chances are this is one of those sets I would have brought on my trips into town. I didn't have a lot. My mum didn't give me a lot of money to spend, maybe £5. And this would have been a set that I would have picked out, and for me, I love this set. I say of all my Lego sets I have, this is probably one of my most treasured. Even though it's the smallest set, one of my most smallest ones, it means a great deal to me. And the fact it's pretty much complete. It's a very special set, really special set. My next set that means a lot to me is the pirate ship. I can remember exactly when I got this set. It was the Christmas of 1989, and I think up until that point this was the biggest Lego set I'd ever received, and in fact it was the biggest Lego set I received for many years. I remember particularly spending pretty much all of Christmas Day with my uncle and my dad, building this set. At the time I was very young, so it was quite a big set for me to finish on my own, so I needed help with it. And I just distinctly remembering spending all of Christmas Day building it. And to this day, it means a lot to me. I think it holds up really well nowadays. It's a very spectacular set, even by modern Lego sets. I think it's really stood the test of time incredibly well. It's not 100% complete. There's a few bits and pieces I've had to fill in with the gaps, because chances are I've got the bits and pieces in my Lego box, but a lot of them have been lost, so I've put it back together as best I can. And it still looks. I love this set. All the minifigures are correct, all present. Some of the sails now are a bit worn. Some of it sadly a bit sun damaged. But I say it means a great deal to me. I say that Christmas of '89 was a very special Christmas. So this set really does mean the earth to me. Then as the 90s came about, my interest in Lego started to wane. Video games came along. That really pretty much took over my hobby collecting for pretty much all my rest of my childhood and into my teens. Mainly the sort of starting with the Super Nintendo, the Master System, then a Mega Drive, Super Nintendo, PlayStation, and so on and so forth. So my time in the 90s was all video games, and Lego pretty much I forgot all about, really. I stopped collecting. Eventually most of my collection just eventually went up into the attic, and there it will remain until an adult. It's quite a shame, really, but I think Lego in those days struggled. I think it took, I know Lego almost in the early 2000s almost went bust because video games basically took over most childhoods, especially mine, and all of my money went on video games. And back then they were really expensive, so I didn't have money. Video games were my hobby and my passion, so Lego took a back seat. And it wasn't until I was in my 20s that I would have ultimately rediscovered Lego, and purely by chance. I think in 2011 I took a trip to Florida, and I distinctively remember going to downtown Disney, and they had a Lego store. And just out of the off chance, I thought I'd go in there and have a look to see what Lego are doing nowadays. And my God, did it blow me away with what Lego sets were in that store. I distinctively remembering the Superstar Destroyer being on display and the Death Star. Now, I thought when I saw those sets, I thought they were just display pieces, something to show what Lego can do. But when I walked around the store, it just blew me away that these were actually sets that you can actually buy. And I was absolutely just amazed by it, particularly the Superstar Destroyer. I just couldn't believe how impressive that set was. It was just mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. But then again, then I looked at the price tag and I couldn't quite believe how much Lego back then cost. As a child, the sets were nowhere near that. So seeing Lego sets costing upwards of $350 was quite shocking at the time, but still very impressive nonetheless. The same with the Death Star. Again, that looked pretty spectacular when I saw that. At that time, also I remember the ways that the Harry Potter sets were there. I had no idea that Lego were making Harry Potter Lego sets. Again, Diagon Alley stood out for me. I remember seeing that. That looked really cool. But that was expensive. So at the time, I didn't want to sort of dive back into Lego, spending that sort of money. So I brought a small set. As I was a huge Star Wars fan, I brought this X-Wing. It's a little bit beaten up now, but again, this one means a lot to me. This is the Lego set that really did kickstart my Lego journey as an adult. I brought this set in Florida. It still looks pretty good today. I think the wings still just about work. It's quite well worn, sun damage unfortunately, but it's still a very cool set. It means a lot to me that the minifigures are present, and if it wasn't for this set, I may never have discovered Lego again. And I think as an adult collector, this is the one that got me back into Lego and back on the journey. It didn't cost me a lot of money. It's the smallest set that enabled me to sort of ease into Lego again. And I haven't looked back. I absolutely fell in love with this set, and since then, as my collection has just grown ever since. And now, Lego is my most favourite thing in the world. I love Lego nowadays. As my channel name suggests, I am dyslexic, and I am very dyslexic at that. From what I understand about dyslexia, it affects people in many different ways. Everyone's dyslexia can manifest in multiple ways and different ways. My particular dyslexia mainly affects my concentration and my handwriting, and also, but more importantly, is my short-term memory, which is it's a significant struggle with me, particularly when it comes to memorising things. Basically, I struggle to read. Obviously, I can read. Don't get me wrong. I'm not illiterate. I can read, but I struggle to read books. Simply because my memory retention. When it comes to reading books, if I read a page or two, by the time I've got down to the third or fourth page, I've completely forgotten about what I've just read. So I have to go back and reread it. And again, after 5 minutes, I would have forgotten what I've read, and that gets obviously very frustrating. And also, if I stop reading, put a book down, and go back to it the next night, I've forgotten what I've read, so it would spend time. I'd have to go through the book again and reread what I've read, simply because I can't remember it. It's even more challenging when there's names involved. I'm terribly struggle with names remembering, especially even when I'm watching TV programs. If there's a lot of names that are thrown at me at once, my wife finds it quite frustrating because it takes me sometimes I have to go back and pause TV and explain who's who, because I don't remember, and it is very much a struggle. So sadly, I've never read the Harry Potter books, which is I'd love to be able to read them. I've seen all the films, but reading the books, it's impossible. One day I will try and do it. I will make myself try and sit through and go through it, but as I don't enjoy reading books, it's probably something I never do. Same with the Lord of the Rings. Both of those are probably my two beloved franchises of all time. I love the films. But the books, they're too much for me, especially Lord of the Rings. I don't ever see me reading that. I think that's probably be too hard. The fact that I've seen the films, that might help in terms of relation to the names and places, that might help. But sadly, those books are beyond me. I just don't enjoy reading simply because I can't do it. I find my dyslexia doesn't enable me to do it. Now, I wasn't actually diagnosed with dyslexia until late in my 30s, when I went to university as a mature student. Now, throughout all my life, I've always struggled with things, whether it's reading, concentrating on things, particularly at school as a child. But back in the late 80s, 90s, it wasn't sort of a thing that a lot of schools had much knowledge of, really. At least in my experience, a lot of it was put down to me just misbehaving or not concentrating, not being interested. So I was pretty much left to sort of fend for myself, and I struggled very much so. Even as an adult, one of my first jobs, I worked as a filing clerk, which I was now knowing was dyslexia. I used to make a lot of mistakes. My manager used to ask me, 'cause I used to file things in random places, simply because I didn't know. It's a completely subconscious thing. I didn't know I was doing it, and it was my manager always used to ask me, "Are you dyslexic?" And I was like, "No, I've never been tested for it. As far as I know, no, I'm not dyslexic." But quite clearly, I was. But as I say, when I went to university, I found I was struggling with reading. So I asked for help. So I went through all the sort of testing phase, and it took a long time to get the diagnosis. It took about, I think, the process. I think I started undergoing the initial process at university. It took me most of my first year, and I think it was only when I went into my second year that I actually got the final prognosis that I am dyslexic, and very dyslexic. And I also have dyscalculia, I think it was called. I have problems with numbers. Even since being diagnosed with it, I found things get progressively harder. I think now that I'm aware of it, it's quite a hard thing to come to terms with as an adult. I say, now that I'm aware of it, before I was completely oblivious to it, but now I'm aware of it. Yeah, I'd say sometimes things are a struggle. Not every day, but my short-term memory is the worst. It really is. It drives my wife crazy, but she's very good, very sympathetic, and she helps. But my short-term memory, if I write something down, I have to be constantly reminded, because I forget about things, which it's just the way my mind is. I can't really do much about it. But one thing that I have found that I've been able to do, particularly with in terms of my concentration, is Lego. Lego is the one few things that, as I'm getting older, and I can actually sit down and spend hours doing. When I try and play video games nowadays, I don't have the interest that much. My interest wanes very quickly. Watching TV, watching films, I can only do it for a short period of time without getting bored or distracted. Watching sports, I have to be doing something else, because I can't physically sit there for any longer. I get the need to sort of need to do something else, or I get bored. But Lego, I can sit and build Lego for hours. I absolutely love it. I think one of the reasons why I enjoy Lego so much is with the instruction booklets. There's no words, it's all pictures, and I can follow it step by step, and in real time I can see something building. Obviously with Lego I can see it evolving in real time, so I'm seeing progress throughout hours of building. I can sit for 4 or 5 hours building Lego and not have any problems, because I'm not. It's evolving, it's changing. There's always something new that I'm doing. It makes me concentrate. It makes me concentrate, because if I don't concentrate on the instructions, I make mistakes, and frustrating mistakes, and I have to go backwards and sometimes take things apart and rebuild it. But something with my dyslexia, it forces me to concentrate for a long period of time. It makes me sit in concentrating because I love what I'm thoroughly enjoying what I'm doing with the building process. It's a very relaxing thing. I can't explain it. It's an amazing thing. I'd say to anyone who's dyslexic, try it. It might help. I do help. It does. It has made a big difference in my day-to-day life. I must admit, it does help me things. It makes me follow instructions a lot more, and it's taught me to slow things down and take my time. Especially with YouTube, it takes me. It does. Since doing YouTube, I have to do things in a certain way. I need to read things in front of me. I can't remember things, so I do have prompts that I use. Obviously, a lot of people don't do that, but as I'm dyslexic, I have to. I can't remember things that well. Doing this video is quite tough. I have to have I've got a lot of prompts in front of me because it's the way my brain works. I can't sit and memorise an entire script and read it out, which is just the way I am. But despite my dyslexia, it hasn't stopped me doing things. It didn't stop me at university. I still, with help and having to adapt the way I learn and adapt the way I read and certain guidance that I was given, I still achieved a degree. And it didn't stop me, and it hasn't stopped me doing anything since. I'm learning to live with dyslexia now. As an adult, I'm still learning. I don't have all the answers, and I'm still learning how to sort of adjust my life to work around my dyslexia prognosis. It is there; it's never going to go away. But I have to sort of adapt and learn how to change my life with it. I guess the point I'm trying to make is anybody who is watching this, anyone who has dyslexia or potentially has symptoms of dyslexia, don't let it hold you back. You can still achieve things in life, a great many things. You just might have to make your own adjustments, and you'll find your own way. And eventually, everyone does things in different ways. I do things in my own unique way, and that's unique to me. Dyslexia is nothing to be ashamed about. There's absolutely nothing wrong with asking for help. That's one of my biggest mistakes. I used to never ask for help because I was always ashamed, in school I was always ashamed of putting my hand up and asking for help because I thought I would be embarrassed. But now, if I don't understand something, I ask for help. But don't be ashamed. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. Everybody, at some point in their life, regardless of being dyslexic or not, everyone needs some sort of help every now and then. So whether you're a young person at school who's struggling, don't be ashamed of it. If it's part of you. If you're at work, you'll find a lot of employers are very sympathetic to you being dyslexic. I think a lot of employers would appreciate if you're honest with them. Any good employer will help you. You will get the help is out there. Sometimes you just have to ask for it. Now, as dyslexia is part of me now, it's a huge part of me. It's never going to go away, and I'm not ashamed of it. If anything, I take heart from being dyslexic. It's what makes me me. It's why I chose my YouTube channel name as a Dyslexic Geek. It's what I am. I am a geek by heart. I'm dyslexic, and it's who I am. So that is the nature of why I named my YouTube channel what it is. So if this video helps a single person out there or gives you any kind of encouragement, then this video served its purpose, and that's great. All I say is just keep going with it. That's it. So I hope if you enjoyed today's video, I hope it's been of some help to anybody out there. Let me know in the comments any thoughts that you have, any questions. I'm happy to help. If you have any questions regarding dyslexia, ask, and I'll try and help and give you advice as much as I can. And if you've enjoyed it, I'd be very grateful if you consider subscribing today. And I look forward to seeing you on my next video. Thanks very much for watching today.